Good evening. Welcome to tonight's school committee meeting, the first one of the new school year. You'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And what I'd ask is, when we finish the pledge, is you remain standing for a moment, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today is 12 September, which means yesterday was 11 September, and we all know the meaning of that date here in our history, recent history of 12 years ago. So I'd ask that we all take a moment, reflect, think, and remember, and pray for the folks who lost their lives on that day, whether in the towers, the field out in Pennsylvania, the Pentagon, and any other places on airplanes that may have happened. And that we also think about the folks who remain behind, the ones who have to bear the pain of the loss of their loved ones. And then I'd also like you to think, and it's very personal to our own little community here in Littleton, is our dear Superintendent Kelly Clunchy. His youngest son passed away just about a week ago now. It was quite a surprise, unexpectedly. Keep Kelly, his wife Brooke, and their oldest son Scott in your thoughts and prayers too as we go forward. And give Kelly a hug when you see him. Thank you, folks. Consent agenda. The minutes, June 13th, 2013, and the oath to pay bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read. Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes. Interested citizens? Seeing none, we'll go right into recognition. You'll see on the agenda in memory of Phil Swenson. Phil is a gentleman who passed away back in July. And many folks in the current school system may not know who he is or what he did. But he came to Littleton a little over 40 years ago and became involved in local business, but also in the high school. And he was in our school system helping out as a volunteer. He helped extensively with the sports programs and photography. So I want to take a moment that we do recognize Phil and wish his family well, certainly, with his passing. But now, well, I was going to say on a happy note, but that's not quite right. Marilyn, come on up, please. Sadly, because Marilyn travels so much, just returned from China and other parts of Southeast Asia. Let's turn off the TV, please. You're better looking than I am, so. Marilyn had taken notes for us for the minutes for about 8 years, so it predates us even. So you've been doing that for a while. But not only that, you do it for other town committees, the PMBC, the FinCom, and what is it, the Historical Commission?
No, the conservation.
I'm sorry.
Community preservation.
She's active in the community. Children, and certainly this is going to be the last year for the grandson?
Yes.
Yes, he's going to graduate, then goes off to college.
Yeah.
But very importantly, the minutes are a way of communicating to folks that aren't here and an official record as to what took place in the school committee. And we understand the importance of that. It gives documentation for us to go back to and refer to, and then for folks to see what they may have missed and want to know more about and can ask an informed question and perhaps become active about something that they read in the minutes. So you performed a very important function for us here in Littleton. You have people that can't make it, couldn't watch it on television, but they could see those minutes and read them and know what transpired. And the accuracy of that was wonderful. Now,
I just add too, it also helped us tremendously not to have us do it. Because A, we never would have done it as well. But in seriousness, it helped us not have to worry about it and think about the topics at hand and be able to have a more robust debate rather than trying to keep up with what was going on. So
Thank you, Mike.
Significant contribution
Thank
for
you,
us.
Mike.
No, thank you very much for your service these last
Thank you,
few
Darryl.
years, even though I only saw a couple of them.
Yeah, I know.
a couple here at the table were not even at the middle school yet, were they? When? Okay, beautiful flowers, but not as beautiful as you are as a person and everything you've done for us. So thank you very much.
I miss it. But it's gone back to the way it used to be, and I think that's great. And I told Dorothy that if you ever need someone some night, just, if Bettina can't make it, let me know and I'll stop by and do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Now, just don't go out there and break her leg so she can't make it. We'd like to thank the custodians. Over the summer, just an absolute wonderful job. That's what they did to spruce up the buildings. In fact, just a little while ago, we were over at the high school, and very specifically, I can speak to that tonight, as they're preparing, and that's what Chuck happens to be right now, is welcome back to school night at the high school. But the floors shine with a glisten, and they're absolutely wonderful. Just as an example, and the building was just spit shine clean. How's that? Chloe, you've been there already for school now. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it looks great, as always.
Good, good. So I certainly like to thank the custodians. And then certainly, we had the opportunity last week to welcome back the teachers and the staff, and publicly here this evening, we'd like to certainly welcome everybody back. Principals, please carry that message back from the school committee for sure, that we're happy everybody's back, safe and sound, and everything looks like it's off to a really great start. So you like to add anything?
No, and you know, from my position, it was a great start, nice and smooth, everything went really well. As you said, the buildings look great, the staff is excited to be there, kids are excited to be there.
Super.
Yeah, I'd agree. The opening at Russell Street was smooth. Our faculty and staff was excited to be there. The parents and students, the transition was smooth, and our opening has been all we could have expected. So I don't have anything to add as well. I'm proud of everyone. And we're ready to go.
Not much left to say there. Middle school was buzzing.
Ditto.
And after the kids got in, they were awake. I think there was a little shock the first day to be back, but after that, they were ready to go. So.
Rita, I'm going to apologize to you up front, because I didn't prepare you for this. But I'm going to ask you to come to the microphone, please.
Oh, jeez.
And we're going to welcome Rita, our new Pupil Services Director, taking Diana Peterson's place. And if you just give us that snapshot, please.
Over
about
here?
yourself. Yes, please.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, thank you. I'm really glad to be joining the Littleton community. I have been told that I have the worst job in the district and that I have very big shoes to fill. So in spite of that, I'm still very glad to be here. And I looked for a small community as my husband and I are thinking about relocating from Western Massachusetts back to this area where we have many friends and family. So anyway, I'm very glad to be part of your community and to help the children in this town.
We look forward to it, Rita.
Thank you.
Very much. Now, when you say you're out in Western Massachusetts, every time we listen to people in Boston, we already thought we were in Western Massachusetts.
Yes, I know. Well, there is a lot beyond
Yes.
495.
Yes, there is. A couple more things in recognition that's not on the agenda. Boston Magazine recently rated Littleton High School as 41 in their greater metropolitan reporting area. But even beyond that, Go Local Worcester, and that's a franchise of sorts, Go Local, and you can pretty much pick a city, and they have that. And that was out of all 344 high schools in the state of Massachusetts, Littleton High School was ranked 35. So now that's the high school ranking, and we have the other three principals here tonight. But the kids didn't get that good in high school without the foundations you all laid, and the staff and the teachers in your buildings. So that is a combined and wonderful statistic that just reflects what you all are doing and what our teachers are doing with our children. So thank you all to you too. And I already talked to John, so. Good night, Marilyn. Drive safe. Any other recognition anybody wants to make? We're off the missed. Okay. All right, field trip request. Mark, do you want to talk to us about that at all? And it's to Packmanadoc, New Hampshire.
Yep. I know you have a brief explanation of this in your packet already, so I won't read the whole thing. This is from Mr. Levine and the 8th grade team, and they go on this trip annually to Miller State Park. I'm going to take a field trip up Packmanadoc. It is an interdisciplinary unit that combines English language arts, science, and mathematics, as well as a physical education and health and wellness component. Fantastic trip. It's much, much more than just hiking up and hiking down and seeing the Hawks. It also serves for the 8th grade as our real first bonding opportunity to really talk about working together as a class and what it means to basically be the seniors at the middle school. So it's an opportunity to do some team building, some community stuff, and really to tie three or four content areas together in an authentic way. And they come back and they do some projects and related work in all three of those subject areas. So we're just asking for permission and approval tonight to take them on that trip again.
Anybody have any questions, Mark, for the trip? Can you have some of the kids come back and, give us a little
Yeah.
bit of a
Yeah, that'd be great.
picture show or whatever?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the grade 8 field trip to Packmanadoc for September 20th.
Second.
Motion made second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Tell the kids enjoy it, please.
Thank you.
right, we were to do the superintendent's evaluation this evening, and I'm going to ask gents that we delay that to when Kelly is here.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, new business. The LEA, Littleton Education Association, has sent a letter to the school committee requesting that we enter into negotiations. You may recall, we are just entering the third year of the three-year contract. Contract runs from 1 September through 31 August. So as I say, this past September 1st, we entered the third year. And that's pretty much the standard operating procedure we've had for some years now, where just about the first month of that third year, the request is made, and certainly it's we're agreeable to and I think is the right way to go. We've already had some preliminary discussions with the LEA, and as far as negotiations going forward, we look at the middle of October to be getting that process with them. So that's where we are there. Anybody want to add anything? Disbursement of funds for the LEA agreement for fiscal year 14. You may recall, folks, when we did this three-year contract, the teachers worked with us and deferred a step raise from fiscal year 13 into fiscal year 14. Now, the school year and the fiscal year don't line up quite exactly, obviously, because fiscal year here in our town is 1 July through 30 June. But we budget everything for the school year in the fiscal year. So what we are now doing is we're going to take a vote accepting a work of art, and it was a work of art because it took a lot of work for folks to come up with these steps as to how we're going to disperse roughly $187,000 that was deferred from fiscal year 13 across the board, where it's agreeable to both the union leadership and its membership also. And they'll be voting on that in about 2 weeks or so. Anybody want to make a motion on where we are now? Do you want to wait?
I'm happy to make a motion. How detailed do we have to make the motion just to accept the negotiations per the LEA along those lines?
The fiscal year
Okay.
14 new proposed grid schedule.
Okay. Do we want to do it tonight, or if they're going to vote in 2 weeks, do we want, well, actually, in 2 weeks, you and I aren't going to be here for that meeting, right?
Correct, 26th,
So,
yeah.
why don't we just go ahead and do it tonight, is it?
Yeah, I'm okay with us voting it.
All right, sure. Okay.
Chuck, just to catch up real fast, the fiscal year 14 teachers grid, we're about to make a motion to accept that. Vote on it.
Just one procedural glitch on it. If we vote to approve it, do we need to release that tonight? But they haven't voted on it, so wouldn't our vote have to come second because we would be required to release the information to the public once we vote it publicly?
Once it's out of negotiations.
But they haven't approved it yet,
Correct.
so it'd be inappropriate for us to release that information, wouldn't it? I'm just concerned about the procedural steps there.
Do you want to wait 2 weeks?
I don't really think it's a huge issue one way or the other. I mean, we will have a quorum, and we've been talking about it in detail in our executive sessions relative to contract negotiations. So, I think we all know what page we're on. As long as we have a quorum on that 2 weeks from Thursday, we'll be okay.
Chuck?
I'm okay with it anyway.
Okay, defer to the next meeting. Let it go. Did you all see the bully survey request?
Yes.
From one of our colleagues? It's not something I'd like to act on tonight, but discuss and see if that's something we do want to respond to, how we may want to respond to that.
Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Go ahead.
Sure. So we, as a school committee, got a survey from a doctoral student who's doing research on the new anti-bullying law that was passed into law in Massachusetts in 2010. The research is looking at different administrative and school committee functions relative to that bullying law, and trying to see how effective it is and how well the knowledge of school committees is relevant to the law. And so we're just, this doctoral student is looking for more information, just emailed essentially every school committee member in Massachusetts looking for more information.
But she's also a school committee member.
Yes.
And I can't remember what
North Reading.
North Reading.
Consent.
Excuse me, would you be looking for whether we just have a Littleton School Committee response or individually fill out the survey, or that's part of
I'm
it?
open to your all's just thoughts on that.
I already did it.
and
I did it too. Mine was short because she wants school committee members with more than 1 year of service, so I don't qualify. So I just filled out a little something.
All right, well, that answers that. All right, individually as you wish.
Okay.
Takes 15 minutes at the most.
Took me 3.
Yeah, you could do it in less if you wanted.
Answers that, so thank you.
Sorry.
Nice. You're a trendsetter.
Yeah.
I'm worried I did something wrong,
Maverick.
Okay, anything else under new business? Steve, anything there? Busy? All right, let's go into the superintendent's report. Chloe, would you like to give the school report, please, student representative?
Oh, sure, yeah. So, at Shaker Lane, there's going to be a lot of open houses in the next couple weeks. Transitional and first grade will be on September 18th from 7 to 8 p.m. and second grade would be the following day, the 19th, from 7 to 8 p.m. And then there's the book fair on October 1st from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. and everybody's welcome to come to that, so that's for parents and students. At Russell Street, there's the 5th grade instrument pickup on September 18th at 6:30 p.m. Picture Day is September 24th, and curriculum night is September 26th. And then at the middle school, the 8th grade is doing a fundraiser for the Washington, D.C. trip at the 99 Restaurant in Westford on October 21st from 5 to 10 p.m. So 15% of all proceeds will go towards the 8th grade trip. And then at the high school, there's mostly just there's the back to school night, which is happening right now, and then there's a ton of sports things coming up. But the first football game, notably, is tomorrow night. So that'll be good. And I don't really, would you like me to read all the other sports games that are coming up, or is that?
Hey, go plug with that. Start of the new year.
All right, yeah. So on September 16th, there will be a boys soccer game at 3:30 p.m. The girls soccer team will be playing on the 13th at 3:30. Boys golf will be playing on September 16th at 3:30 at the Groton Country Club. Field hockey will also be on September 13th at 3:30 at the high school, I think. And then cross country will have a meet at Fay Park on September 19th at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
When we say the football game is tomorrow night, when we're saying it tonight, we really mean it because we're live. So Friday, 13th, it is the 13th.
7 p.m.
Okay, so 7 p.m., we'll see you out there at the football field tomorrow.
That's West Boylston.
That's West Boston, thank you. Okay, staff changes over the course of the summer. 18 new hires. We're not going to read all the names here this evening. There were some other changes and moving around of personnel also. But those 18 new hires are ranged between, to our first-year teachers, some experienced teachers, teachers' assistants also, and school nurses. So the gambit of the professions that we have in our school system. But certainly it's part of the packet for folks to read. Anybody want anything on staff changes? We already talked a little bit about the first week. Gents, you want to add anything?
I don't think so. No? Smooth, very, very smooth. Couldn't be happier.
Gents, have any questions?
Sure, I have one comment. I've heard from a number of different people in the community concerns about a cost for a textbook, or a booklet for one of the Spanish classes at the high school. So $29 that students and families are having to pay to take this general course, this Spanish course, which is a requirement for graduation for some students who are pursuing Spanish. And so it's just something that I wanted to bring up because it's concerning because we want our public education system to be truly public. And when we require, when mandatory, materials for a student's education, when the cost of that is placed on those students and families rather than on the district, it becomes less of a public education and slightly more of a private one. So I just want to make sure that we look into this and try to see what we can do in the future, so that the cost of new supplies and books, as provided by, should be provided by the school rather than than students.
All right. Have you had the opportunity to talk to the principal yet about it?
No, I just
Okay.
heard a lot of
Right.
buzz around the community.
Could you just take that note, please, Jerry Lynn? And, why don't you-
We can
How
add
about-
it
how
to
about-
our next agenda.
yeah, and then maybe a
Yeah.
little homework assignment for you, if you would, please.
Sure.
Contact John.
Yeah.
And find out what the scoop is.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, Jerry Lynn, you want to talk to us about Park?
Yes.
And you got to say the whole acronym.
Well, PARC is an acronym. It's PARCC. It's not an urban oasis. It's, the letters stand for something, and it's Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Career. There are a lot of CCs, and that college and career readiness is one of the key design features of the Common Core State Standards, which Massachusetts has adopted within the new Massachusetts frameworks. The principals and I and Steve Mark, our business manager, and Mike Megek, the technology coordinator, participated in a telecast and webinar produced jointly by PARC and DESE, Department of Education, explaining what this PARC field test is. 3 out of our 4 schools will be involved in it. Shaker Lane is exempted because Shaker Lane is not a school that tests in the grades 3 through 11. So basically, the P part of PARC is a partnership. There's 20 states in this partnership. And all through the nation, about 1 million students are in this field test sample. PARC randomly selects the schools, and the schools randomly select classrooms. In the Massachusetts sample of schools participating in the PARC field test, about 70% of the schools will have students in some grade level or subjects that participates in the PARC field test. Typically, you're going to have about 2 classrooms per school, per grade level involved. At the high schools throughout Massachusetts, there may be up to 4 classrooms. And that's just because there were fewer high schools across the 20 states in order to get up to that number of students in the random sample. What this looks like for an individual student is going to participate in a test in one subject area only. There are 2 types of PARC assessments. Again, there's more initials. One is a PBA, which is a performance-based assessment, and the other is an EOI, end-of-year assessment. There are 2 types of assessments in the PARC field test, computer-based or paper-based. And you see in the letter that we put in the school committee packet, that does detail the grade levels in Littleton, within our 3 Littleton schools that have been selected for the field test. We have some computer-based tests to be administrated, and some paper-based tests that will be administrated. There will be further instructions given out by PARC and DESE. And if you have any further questions regarding the technology requirements, we have our technology coordinator here, or the principals or I will be happy to answer your further questions.
What's done?
I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
So I'm reading the number of classes, 2 classes at grade 3 doing PBAs in 3 sessions. Is that each student's going to have 3 sessions of testing, or is that 1 session of testing per student? How much test time are the
Okay, we're
students going to be
talking about
subjected to?
each session. When you see the 3 in terms of number of the session, each session is a 2-hour session, so that student would be involved in 6 hours.
6 hours of testing. How much other testing do we have scheduled during this same period of time during the April through June?
So what
timeframe?
Dr. Jamian might want to cover is the fact that there are opt-out options from the MCAS if your schools and students are taking the park. So we have the option to not double dose kids with standardized testing if they're selected. So I didn't do that as well. Do you want to explain that?
No, you did
All
excellent.
right. So it's roughly the equivalent of the MCAS exam. If it's 3 sessions at 6 hours, MCAS tests are untimed. Those kids could go all day theoretically if they wanted to. So the classrooms that are chosen, we have the option to not MCAS test them that year. Some districts might make the option to do both, but we haven't had that conversation at the admin level yet.
And then, do parents get the results of these tests?
No results
No results.
anywhere
It's a
will be
field- it's a field
reported.
test.
This is a field test, a test administration for Park to test the test items, for the districts to get an idea of what the test administration procedures are like. No reports, no results reported anywhere.
And what will Park be using the results for?
To test the items and to test the test administration. You need to take a look at, long time ago, when MCAS started, there was a development of a bank of questions. And there are certain things that you have to see in terms of what makes for a good question and a valid question. And this is the beginning of developing those bank of questions for the Park assessments.
Well, I get concerned, particularly as we're talking, one, I'm glad that we have the ability to opt out of the MCAS testing, but then at the same time, we lose the data that we actually could be valuable to the parents and the district on how the performance
Okay.
of the students are doing.
And that's a very good question, and that question was asked during the telecast, and the telecast was led by the chief student assessment analyst at DESE. And those pieces of the pie, I mean, there's interlocking pieces of the pie about the reporting of tests to parents and for accountability purposes, quite frankly. And all of those things to be determined, and they're working on it, and we will certainly include that in our further updates.
Working on it. So they're basically requiring us, as I read the letter, we could technically opt out, but we're
Yeah,
not
with
really
like
allowed to
two-
opt out of the testing, and yet it's pretty undefined, a lot of these open issues here.
Well, I don't know that it's undefined. If this is going to be the next generation of assessments, and if MCAS falls away at some point, which seems like the big picture across the states, you have to field test the next product. So this is the field test for the next product. They field tested the MCAS before we rolled out MCAS in the state, in a similar fashion. And so we have to have conversations at the admin level to decide, are we just going to freeze that data and use other in-house data with this subgroup of kids? And is that relevant enough to place kids in interventions or place them in higher end programs? If it's not, then we'll have another conversation about how much assessment is too much assessment. We have to have the time to have those conversations as a next step.
What are we talking about in terms of the way, the scope of Park in Littleton? Are we talking like entire grades or not? If we did opt out of MCAS, an entire
No, it's
grade
in
would
the-
not?
No,
It's
the essential unit is like a homeroom or a section.
Okay.
And it
Well,
could be as little as 10 students. Like, for example, at some of the high school level courses, it can't be grade 10 students. That's a Massachusetts exception
Right.
across the state.
Right.
Right, but
It'll
algebra 2
impact us
for
greater than
classes
that
would be
elementary
the
level. There
entire.
are 2 classrooms per grade. So at 2 out
Thank you.
of, at our biggest class, it'll be a third, and at our smaller classes, it could be half, a 2 out of 4.
Somewhere
in
between
fourth
30 and
grade.
50%.
Correct.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Thank you.
That's a problem. Littleton, I mean,
Wait, it's a big problem, like I brought it up at the meeting, I said one student, and you've said it eloquently in meetings before, one student is a big percentage of our population already. If we opt out, one student is a much greater percentage, positively or not so positively, so it affects our data significantly. The state, the question was asked, and the state indicated they're fully aware that it would skew data significantly for schools and districts, and they hadn't, and Dr. Jamin alluded to this, they hadn't quite come up with, it's almost like the asterisks in the Hall of Fame. They hadn't quite figured out how they were going to annotate that these weren't true, accountability data statistics because they weren't full banks of students. And yet, as Dr. Branco indicated, there's no way to roll out cold a new product without them having the chance to validate the questions. Every year we give MCAS some of those questions are new questions that don't count, that are added to the test the following year. They're test questions. So I don't think anybody's happy about it. I think they said 300 districts in the state were participating. That's almost every district in the state. And it's sort of a necessary evil as we move towards what we hope to be a better assessment that's, tied more closely to the standards and, is technology-based and is moving us towards the future. So I don't think anybody is thrilled about the process, but it to some degree is a necessary evil.
But what it proposes to measure is intriguing. So the things that we don't necessarily like about MCAS, and I say that delicately, but some, not every type of learner gets tested, and not every skill set that you're looking to develop in a student and as an adult in the workforce gets measured. The goal is to talk about college and career readiness and to find ways to measure that. So the premise and the theory behind it is sound. We just have to go through the growing pains to get to this point.
And we'll be talking about this in our presentations about the format of the testing. A lot of the accommodations that are separately annotated for MCAS are just built right into the performance-based assessment process and the computer-based testing. So, it's referred to as a next generation of tests. And so many of the criticisms about MCAS and the paper testing environment, we're trying to see, or the state and Park is trying to see, how this computer-based interactive testing environment ameliorates that.
I understand the need for that. What I'm getting concerned about is a sample size. As I look through this here, this is almost half the classes at each of the grade levels. That number 4 classes at Algebra 2, that's pretty much the entire Algebra 2. That's not a sample, that's our entire population.
Well, no,
No,
that would be
no,
a section of
it
kids in
isn't.
Algebra 2. In high school, the high school is a little different than that.
The
How
high
many
school,
sections of Algebra 2 are we offering?
Well-
That's where I'm getting,
okay,
yes, I'm getting my point.
and that's where you will find in the district, and Dr. Harrington, I will take a look at when, as I mentioned, those tests are not to involve grade 10 students. So say there are X number of Algebra 2 sections at Littleton High School. If those Algebra 2 sections have 10th graders enrolled in it, those students and those students in that section will not be involved in that test. So we'll be taking a look at that and report back to the state what our involvement will be. It will be either 9th or 11th graders that are taking Algebra 2 that will take that test. And we'll give you that final report.
I'm only kind of being a little bit of a wise guy. Why don't we just opt out MCAS across the board and let everybody take the park this year? And really help out with the park.
We're not controlling that.
I mean, if we
What you
really
see on
want to
the board
help
is
out,
out of
let's
our
help
control.
out.
The entire-
You know,
Again, I'm only being semi-facetious.
No, but our ability to have an answer to that semi-facetious question, no, really. The state indicated that the guidelines for opting out of MCAS will be coming probably around November, because we're going to be reporting in the next week and a half, the number of sections and the number of grades that are participating. That goes back to the state. And then a second round of schools gets notified in the end of October that they're on this happy list in order to get the sample size. After all that is done, then the procedures and the guidelines for the MCAS exception will be rolled out. And we'll be able to answer that question.
Is there a what's in it for us? I mean, other than down the road, So there's no,
The whole state benefits.
I mean, as Dr. Branco
we
indicated,
don't.
the majority of districts have students involved in this. If you want to know my response to that question, I think it's better to be involved in the field test than not to be involved in the field test, because those schools and districts that are not involved in the field test, they have to, on their own, after school, take a look at some of the computer-based testing protocols and items. And I think that's harder to do. It's not an authentic testing environment. So to me, that's what's in it for us.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Going back to Daryl's first point, we basically have a choice of having these six or so hours for park testing, in addition to the MCAS, which is another day or so. We have the choice of doing both of that and getting the MCAS data, or having the same amount of testing time relatively with just the park without the data. So we either put in, give or take, roughly twice as much time into standardized testing with.
Well, I would I would caution you on making that statement. Those students that participate
Right.
in a park assessment
Don't have to do the MCAS.
in that subject area, so it's not, as
It's not
Dr.
in
Branco
benefits
said,
science.
it's not a double
It's only
dose.
one.
It's not a,
Mhm.
they're not hit twice.
My reason I asked that question is because these tests, as I understand it, won't be taking place simultaneously with MCAS. I mean, how could they? Which means that for the middle school, for example, if you have classrooms being pulled out for the park field tests, and then later on, whether it's a couple of weeks or months later, or whatever the schedule is, having everyone else pulled out for MCAS, except for those students who are tested for park, you're going to have 2 days of disruption, because what one classroom is doing in the middle school absolutely affects what another classroom is doing. And I'm sure that's true to some extent in the elementary schools, but you have a little bit more of isolation classroom to classroom. And so my concern is this just creates a bigger administrative problem and a bigger loss in class time, because you can't use your days as effectively as if all 5 classes, let's say, in your grade were.
So
Well, I would say one thing, and then I would defer to the principals. I'd say one thing in general, and then the principals would probably talk about specifics in their classroom. Your question assumes that teachers prepare almost lockstep, and that if all of the students are not involved at a particular time in a particular classroom activity, then there's loss of instructional time. And I would actually respectfully disagree with that assumption. At the middle school, for example, teachers teaching the same subject area have 5 sections. And the pacing for those 5 sections may differ, and we expect teachers to accommodate that. But beyond that, I'll defer to what the principals have to say.
I think it's logistics, and I think it's not really it's difficult to participate in this particular discussion until we know exactly who the kids are, which sections, and for me, it comes down to logistics. It's not educational delivery or methodology. It's just, I'm going to look at it, we're going to build a schedule that maximizes our ability to offer instruction. And we could be offering the test block at a different time. It might not be during an academic period. We might discuss it at the faculty leadership level and say, we're going to do it during unified arts classes, or we're going to do a testing block for these 2 subgroups. These 3 subgroups have academics on the opposite day. We flip it so that actually they'll have balanced instructional time. I mean, you just concurrently schedule events. That's kind of what we do when it comes to scheduling anything. And even assembly, you try not to lose too much instructional time. So it's hard to participate in the how until we know the total what.
Sure. I agree with you. The last thing I want to do is interrupt instructional time to pilot a standardized test. That's the last thing I want to do. I think it's a ridiculous waste of time, to be completely honest with you. However, I'm very optimistic that this new product is going to be more effective than MCAS was. And in order for that to happen, I want to do my part as a part of the community and have Russell Street do their part to make it as good as it can be, because I don't want to roll out an assessment that's not effective. So I feel like to a great deal, and I talked to my colleagues about this, I'm one of those folks that feels like to a great deal MCAS asks students to regurgitate rote knowledge, and I want to make sure that we're getting an assessment that is more effective and that's looking at college and career readiness and that's looking at critical thinking skills and 21st century skills. And so if we have the opportunity to take a look at that assessment and see how our students perform, it's not that big a ding on instructional time, and to be involved in that field test, I think for the greater good, it's important to be a part of that. So in my black and white world, I 100% agree with you, and it makes me crazy to interrupt our instructional time and the great work that we're doing when we're not bringing scores out to parents, and we're not going to get scores to be able to figure out how students are doing and how we can improve our instruction. But from a community perspective, and how can we help education as a whole, and how can we move our field forward and help our students in the future, I think it's beneficial, and I'd rather, as Dr. Jamian said, be a part of it than be away from it and not be able to put our fingerprint on it and say, hey, listen, here's where our concerns were. Our students took it, and this is what the problems were. Here's how the technology didn't work. Here's what the issues were. So yeah, I think it's not great, and in my gut, I don't like it, but for the bigger
It'll pay
picture,
off.
I can see the benefit of it.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Park theoretically is a great step up from MCAS, and we need to do what we can to make sure we get it right. Certainly do a much better job than we did last time we designed a standardized testing system. So it sounds like it'll be a little bumpy this year, but it'll pay off in the future, and that's good news. I just have two more questions. One from a technology piece. Do we have the technological resources, and not just in terms of devices, but in terms of bandwidth, to make this happen?
Yes.
Mr. McEachern?
Yeah, I think we do.
I guess that's how we're doing it for the
We could, right now we have like 25 megabytes down at at most of the schools, but we can up that if we wanted to. If we find that we don't have the bandwidth, we can go to Verizon and get the bandwidth that we need.
Okay.
So,
It's actually interesting, when we were in the conference call, we joked with Mike, one of the things we heard from most of the districts was they didn't have a stable enough network to run Park, and they talked about how the test was, had caching in it to handle network instability, and Mike said, I don't know what the problem is, why people are having all these problems, and I said, well, listen, those of us came from other districts, our network was down more than it was up, so we're pretty lucky where we are, and I think we're in a pretty good place.
you can
so.
also download the Park test if you feel like you don't have the bandwidth, that you can actually download it.
And
make it available for
people.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic.
Thanks, Mike.
And just looking forward at that, in terms of the data that we will be missing out if we choose, if we do choose to opt out for the students, so they don't have to take two tests in the same subject twice in the same year. That loss of data, will that be impacting our ability to have more data be used for the EdEval that we're rolling out? Because the EdEval relies a lot on
No.
on
Not the first
year. No.
Okay, so that
No.
won't be an issue.
Flat out, no.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, first blush, and certainly Commissioner Chester's letter to the superintendents, and it was to the superintendents, not just school committee, by the way. So it's skip echelon, as we called it in the Air Force. Anyway, it was very directive. It's pretty much going to participate in this program. So certainly the conversation tonight is good, and I shared many of those concerns, in fact, probably even to a deeper extent, such that I asked Kelly and Jerry Lynn for a special tutorial. So even before coming in this evening, sat down with them. Certainly, they both offered assurances and provided me with further information. It ameliorates my concerns for sure. I think you hear from all of us still, we have some concerns with this. It's certainly, you feel confident in it. Some of the simplest stuff, like the technology piece, that's taken care of. So some of those things that can be snafus, that's great. We got a little time certainly to not sit on this, but ponder it a little bit more, learn more, and then then come back to us again and let us know what you think. And we'll have thought some more through it also, and we'll see how we want to continue to handle it as a community. So thanks very much, Ellen. Thanks, Mike, and thank you for the inputs. Just go ahead.
One quick question. Just when do we think we're going to be having the conversations around whether or not we are going to double dip? The kids are going to take multiple.
Respectfully, we need to put ourselves all in the same room with the superintendent, with the team, and really talk about.
We just had a conference call on Wednesday.
Yeah, we just had the first call.
Where we were given the option.
I do not think it will be within a month. As I said, September 25th, by September 25th, DESE will know
Where it's falling out.
where your numbers overall participating. Then, by the end of October, you have your second round of schools being notified. So I can't see how this will be before November.
Anything else, folks, on that?
You want me to stay up?
Yes, please. Okay, the educator evaluation training.
Yes. Steve, if you have that PDF of that training, that's separate document? Dorothy mailed you the
She didn't tell me she emailed it.
Yeah, well, we did it in the office. I have it on a
If the
different.
chart's not up there, we do have it in our packets. And
Okay,
you
let
can
me
just give us the
talk
highlight.
generally. Littleton Public Schools is poised now to enter its first year of implementing the new educator evaluation framework. And in its first year of implementing that framework, what that involves is a 5-step process of reaching a summative performance evaluation for faculty, for school-level administrators, and for the superintendent. So, according to the state regulations, each district must provide a certain number of required training sessions for those people who are evaluators, principals, superintendent, and provide 4 hours of training for teachers. And so we in Littleton posted on our website, and you can find it when you go in the front page of the Littleton website and you pull down different departments under professional development, you will see what the chart that you have that I provided in the packet. We feel we're moving along and that we are ahead of the game compared to the RTT districts last year. We're moving into September and we have completed all of the required trainings for teachers. In fact, yesterday, the Littleton, former past Littleton High School principal, Bob DeSauniers, he was the consultant that offered the SMART Goals training to our elementary and secondary faculty during the early release. We also feel we're well poised to implement this educator evaluation framework because the superintendent, last year the superintendent had put together a joint committee of the LEA and the administration, and we came together and decided on contract language for implementing the ed eval system. And also in that joint spirit of collaboration, the trainings that you see for evaluators that was offered in June 17th and July 8th, we had 2 teacher leaders from each school join the administrators and partake in that training. And those teachers, one teacher at each school was chosen by the LEA, and one teacher from each school was chosen by the administrator. So we have teacher leaders and LEA representatives who are well grounded in the trainings. So we feel we're well poised to implement this.
Principals want anything?
No, just that I think after yesterday's training, at least at the middle school, I would suspect this is true everywhere, faculty came back and there was a lot of buzz around what they had just experienced and learned, and at least at the middle school, we had time after still on the clock, so to speak, after the training, and everybody came back and really hustled and started to work in teams and to talk about their understandings of the goals and how they're going to develop them. So it was a nice first shot across the bow at developing team goals and goal setting. And then I'm sure at the building level, we're each going to kind of roll that out in our own way, either through faculty meetings or team meetings. before we have one-on-ones with teachers and teams. So I think there's a, as with anything that's new, there's some anxiety there, but I think there's a comfort level, and we've learned a lot from the districts who have gone out ahead of us. So, there's always that discussion about RTT districts versus not RTT, the benefits and the pros and the cons. In this case, we've been able to watch everybody step in it a little bit, and then we've learned from that. So I think it's been healthy.
Question. If you can, putting aside the amount of work that's going to be required of the evaluators, which is significant, are you excited about implementing the program? And are you looking forward to seeing what the impact will be on?
It's hard to do the first thing so quickly.
Yeah, and it's that's a really very, interesting, very good question, Mike. Obviously I've been doing this for a long time. And I was saying to a group of faculty, I can't remember whether it was that new staff orientation, that for me, yes, I have anxiety, and yes, it's going to be a tremendous amount of work, but in terms of helping to improve the profession, helping to help people to consistently and constantly improve their teaching to students, I think this is one of the most exciting times to be doing it as well. I'm this is kind of sick, but I'm actually looking forward to it.
Anything else?
Sounds like it's sort of that same issue with the park. We're hoping the final product will be a big improvement over the current system. It's just getting there where a lot of the issues come up. And of course, for you three and John as well, it's a big, and for the teachers, of course, it's a big time commitment. So it'll probably shift things around there in terms of how you spend your days.
It certainly will, but I also have to say I think the district as a whole has done an excellent job of preparing everybody to go ahead with this. I've been very, very impressed with the work that we've been doing on this since last November. I think that's when we started, and just as the evaluation system is designed to be a collaborative effort, I think as we've gone into this, it's been a very collaborative effort with the staff and the administration as well.
Good. Which is so important.
And I would add something to what Mr. Faraday just said. When the superintendent returns, he can tell you the story behind these trainings and how they were a collaborative effort. Dr. Branco, Mr. Faraday, and I prepared and delivered with that joint committee the trainings. So I think we're well poised, and so I would say to parents and community members who are watching today that we will be giving updates on this, and that you don't have to quickly read the screen in order to understand what's going on in Littleton's implementing the educator evaluation framework. This schedule is there now, but we will also be putting more information up on the website.
Great, thank you.
In about 40 years of being on the receiving end and the giving end of a very structured evaluation system, while many factors are important, surprise, they cannot be surprised when the evaluation is being taken place. The employee must know where he or she stands, and then that evaluation is the documenting of what you all already know. I'd ask you and the evaluators, everybody that's involved in that, to always keep that at the forefront, and then it can be a very effective system. Okay, Jerry Lynn, you want to talk about Vision 2020 a little? The process? Is that on your plate?
No, I would say that this is something that we discussed, the administrative team and the school committee discussed at the joint school committee and administrative council retreat. It's part of the strategic planning for the district moving forward, and as Superintendent Clenchey has stated, it will be that the document will be further refined, added to by the school councils at the respective schools, faculty members, and will be continue to add more information to this first draft.
And I know Kelly not here this evening, and certainly the last few days, some of these things we don't have them all nailed down. That said, do you have an idea about when you want to come forward after the school councils and everything?
I mean, I think our feedback sessions are the first month of October. I think then we had talked about then going back to the AC team and really disseminating that back to the big team. So you're already talking about the third or fourth week of October before we get that work done. So maybe November, if that's, is that, maybe?
If we said, please by first meeting in December, is that fair?
I think that would be fair,
That's probably-
absolutely.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Let's make that a suspense, please.
Mhm.
Thank you. Jerry Lynn, thanks very much. Anything else you want to
Quite
add?
welcome, no, thank you.
Appreciate you stepping up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okey-doke. September school enrollment. We got kids in the school. That's great.
Do we miss, is that on?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, sorry. Thought we were doing the end of year
We
report.
read it sideways, man.
No, because I was on the end of year report. Hold on. Go ahead.
There's nothing wrong with his neck, folks. It's just- All right, when school began, we had 1,593 of our children in our schools. So, and I know the staff had an opportunity to visit with staff and teachers since that first day of school or so, and all the teachers still have smiles on their faces. This is great, and you all here this evening also. So, and for folks that do want to see statistically how we've looked over the last years or so, when you look at the full 4 years of enrollment, 10, 11, 12, and 13, you see that we're plus or minus 30 or so of that 1,600, give or take, and even closer in most instances. So fairly steady. And certainly we use school choice to help us keep that line as flat as possible for total enrollment. Anybody any questions on that?
Yeah, just a clarification. Under total July 1 and total September 5th, I'm gathering what's happening there is a shift of the grade levels. So the students under July 1, let's say under grade 6, are represented in grade 7 on September 5, is that correct?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. So then, what is the?
It's the census on July 1st, and as you see, total changes by 1,598 on July 1st. So people do move over the summer.
So
Inflow and outflow.
And this then is a bigger question for John, unfortunately, but there's a big variation between July 1st and September 5th at the high school in terms of total enrollment. I'm just wondering where, if folks are enrolled at the high school July 1st, where are they going by September 5th? Is that generally when people shift to other schools in that period? And if so, is
It
this?
went up.
Really went up.
Yeah, it went up.
Right.
Right, so that's school choice acceptance, finalizations, and
Move-ins.
move-ins.
Choice,
Move-ins.
people moving
And
in,
move-in.
people coming back from.
There's a fair number of exchange students too this year.
Yes.
Couple.
Yeah, that's a couple, yeah.
And then just in terms of Russell Street, which went down about 20 students, do you know what?
22.
Yeah.
Well, that
Said
fifth
about
grade class from the sixth grade was bigger than the second grade class coming in to third grade. So, you know, that transition, we actually took more students in than moved out. I off the top of my head, it appears that way to me, but that fifth grade to sixth grade class, the bubble class, that's so big.
Right.
So I think that probably accounts for a decent chunk of that.
Yeah, so could I could just clarify that? Because when I originally read this, I thought July 1st totals were like the current fifth grade class, and the September 5th would be the sixth grade. So when I was looking at it, I saw the 145 in fifth grade be 141 in sixth grade. So could you just clarify what we're actually looking at for data here?
I can't because I didn't create it, so I'm not
That's
sure.
what I said, I'm not having
To
it
be
in front
fair,
of
this
me.
is the first look I got.
Yeah, no, but I interpreted it
I got it.
as sliding down, and it made, a lot of it made sense, but
That's
what
how-
you just said didn't make sense.
That's how I interpreted it too, yeah.
Um,
That's where I'm having an issue.
We'll have to research and get back to you at the next
Okay.
meeting on that. then.
Yeah. You asked the wrong people, I think.
You're at the table.
I get that. I get that.
So our best answer is we need to analyze it.
It's not a bad answer.
Yeah, at first glance, Darrell, that appears at Russell Street to be exactly what it is, but we'll have to confirm.
So the 145,
Because 98 in grade 3 last year to 102 in grade 4 this year, that appears to be what's going on. 130 in grade 4 last year to 129 in grade 5 this year.
Second grade
That
coming
appears to be the transition slide, but we'll have to we'll have to confirm that with Dorothy and
Yeah,
Kelly.
I think that's
how it's done,
what it
but
is, but we'll
that
confirm.
appears to be correct, what you
That's
said.
what I had asked.
We're speculating
Jerry.
wildly now.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we could just clarify that, that would be, I appreciate that. Then we
Thanks.
can follow up as to where the numbers differences came from.
Budget?
Sure, so you have information in your packet, couple of pieces of information. I'd like to report out
as we do every year, where our revolving fund balances are. Information's also on the screen for the viewers at home. Revolving funds, we primarily talk about our school choice and circuit breaker funds. We ended this year at June 30th with a little over 1.2 million combined balance in those funds. There's actually a timing difference between when we received a payment, so we actually have 1.4 million available for FY14 in the school choice and circuit breaker funds combined balance. So that's slightly higher than we had forecasted and anticipated. So that's obviously, I think, good news. The next page, I apologize, it's a little small, but it's a summary of all of the revolving funds that we have. So again, it shows the $1.2 million in the circuit breaker and school choice funds. Those are the top two lines. And then it has all of the other revolving funds as well. They all ended in a positive balance. So overall, our revolving fund balance is healthy. And we're in good shape as far as revolving funds. You also have information. You have a June 30th end of year financial summary statement. Basically, we expended, as we do every year, we expended all of the appropriated funds. We do have money that we carry forward into the summer to pay for the teacher salaries that elect to pay, take the 52 pay. That's what that $909,000 that you see on the screen is. I'd be glad to answer questions on that as well if school committee has questions. And then you also have the last page is a summary of the FY14 budget by the cost center that we developed. It's kind of early in the year to start predicting trends at this point in time, but we would bring this to you monthly.
Any questions to Steve on this?
Just one question. Let me just pick like item 8, the facilities and
Tell
maintenance.
us what page you're on.
Oh, this one that's on the screen there. Whoops.
Yeah, for the
that one.
FY13.
Yeah, so that one there is $75,000 over budget, right?
Correct.
What was the driver on that, and did we account for that in the FY14 planning?
We probably did not account for it in the FY14 budget because of when the budget is developed and when these numbers came out. Can I get back to you as to what the big driver is on that? Can I report back next meeting on this? I'd like to make sure I present the correct information.
You were asking
In particular, is it a recurring cost or was it a one-time cost?
Okay, I'll research that and get back to
you.
you. I know we spent some money fixing some roofs last year as well, so.
The 13.
Yeah, it's what he's referring to is the 6/30/2013 statement report, cost center 8, which is the last line, last column, shows a $75,000 negative balance in that account. So I will get details and report back.
Thank you.
If that's okay.
Just at a summary level, I don't
Yep.
need micro details.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Yes, I do. And it's only marginally related to budget, if I may, gents. Rental fees for our facilities that we charge, whether community members or folks from outside the community. I'm going to ask you to, once again, do a market analysis, please. And then second, I'd like to see if we want to consider whether refurbishment, replacement, fund, whatever we may want to call it. We had talked once before about a revolving fund for this. Where's our status there, please?
Sure. So if you go to, and again, for the folks at home or in the audience, it's a little small. Let me zoom in. So if you go to the summary of the revolving funds page,
Yep.
If you look items 12 and 13, which is about halfway down, you'll see a high school auditorium and you'll see a building use line. So the high school auditorium line is actually a revolving fund, as well as a building use fund, is a revolving fund where we put the revenues from rental fees for the auditorium and the building use. So the auditorium obviously is just the auditorium, that's the Performing Arts Center. The building use is where we put fees if we rent out the gym or something like that to outside organizations. So The bulk of the revenue in those two accounts came from the high school theater account. It was $98,000 last year, compared to roughly $23,000 in other building use fees, gymnasium, cafeteria, things like that. As far as market rates, I can put a detailed schedule together for you and present in a couple of weeks. But anecdotally, we're in ballpark compared to what other communities are. The auditorium, there's only a few performing arts center. Chelmsford has one, Andover, I think Groton Dunstable has one. Andover charges more than we do for that performing arts center. We charge in line with what Chelmsford and Groton Dunstable charge for theirs. Same with gymnasium fees and some of the other fees. We're in line with, close, not exactly, with what those other communities charge. That is, I don't think we're charging too little, but I don't think we're charging a higher fee than normal as well. But I can put that schedule together and get it for you. Some communities charge, anytime somebody uses the gym, there's a charge, whether it's a community group or not. Littleton doesn't do that, so we're not quite comparing apples to apples either. So
We'd also talked, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if that was what you were looking for. I think what you were looking for was like a revolving fund specific to fix the lockers in the locker room.
Well, let's just use the Performing Arts Center.
Yep.
So the revenue generated there, we also talked about this, and we just didn't execute on it, but fencing the money, so that it is dedicated to that room and that room only, so as we need to replace some of the chairs, cushions, rebuff the floor, whatever it may be, that's specific to that facility, that it becomes not really self-supporting, because I don't think we're in that business, but certainly where it's not a case of we collect some amount of money, but not enough to cover really the wear and tear. And I'm not talking about the school students' wear and tear, but those other extracurricular activities, if you will, that come in and use the building, and that wear and tear, are we covering that? And that's a question I don't know that you get the answer for tonight, so I don't want you to struggle for it, but that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So that comes to a point now, do we fence the money so that it's only used for that, is one thing. And then even if we feel that our fees are in line with Chelmsford or Groton, whatever, do we want to charge more? And we know there's break even then, where the curves come together and all that. I'm just asking that.
But specifically, you're asking in theory to charge more, not just because the market will bear it, but that we may have a need specific to, we're not truly covering the
Maintenance,
expense of the
repair,
use of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Organization A, non-Littleton related, uses it, and they pay something, but it really costs Littleton more than that, is my concern.
okay, I understand the concern. So in the case of the auditorium, for instance, of that $98,000, you see we've expended $83,000.
Yeah.
That 83 covers not only the salaries for those events and the custodians and things like that, but it is money that we put back into the facility. So we've done some upgrades on the lighting, we've done upgrades on the soundboards, the electrical at the behest of the fire department and things like that. So we are investing that money back into the auditorium to improve that. The building use, again, we use that money for maintenance and repairs on the facilities as we need it, and something that's not covered from the appropriated funds. So is it a break even? Probably not, but we do put the money back into the facilities.
And certainly, I'd like us to consider that, please. You want Jen's on board with that?
Try to quantify a little bit more, so,
Yeah.
because we may decide at the end of the day that we're not going to raise fees, and that we're going to, absorb some of the loss because we feel it's appropriate in terms of the way the facilities are being used. At least we'll know why we're doing it and to what expense or extent that we're doing it, rather than just sort of pie in the sky it.
I mean, we have not expended large amounts of money from the appropriated funds on, I won't say the gym, but on the auditorium, for instance. Most of those improvements that we've made have come out of the auditorium revolving fund. I can't say the same for the gym, because redoing gym floors is very expensive, and that obviously does come out of some maintenance account, so.
Gotcha. All right. Interested citizens. PMBC?
Yeah, so we have a bit of a bigger update here. As you may know, the Permanent Municipal Building Committee had a town-wide facility study. So while we're talking about building maintenance, we have with the study, the idea is to have a long-term perspective on what will need fixing and when, so that we can have a better idea of what it will cost and hopefully have a long-term budget for building facilities and maintenance that looks not just in the next 2 or 3 years, but 5, 10, 15. We have data, I think, up now to about 20 years of data, and relative cost to what it might be to fix, light A in room 126, or replace windows, and it gives us a lot of options there. And the PMBC just had had EMG, the firm that did this study. We had one of their consultants come in and give a report on it, and I thought it was pretty helpful.
I thought it was a very detailed report.
And it gave us a lot of information about our facilities, and if this building was in the study as well, not just school buildings, we might be able to say how much it would cost to fix these windows when they need replacing 13, 14 years from now, and we have that data accessible to us. So that product was very well received by the PMBC. One of the concerns going forward is how do we maintain this, to be a little glib here, how do we maintain our maintenance program in terms of staffing? So every time you fix something, every time you fix a light bulb in a room, every time you fix a desk, or maybe it's an overhead projector, every time you fix an item in a building, that needs to be entered into this database so that our records remain accurate and so that we are sure where we stand. And that creates a big staffing issue because we do keep track of what we replace and when, but this would just create, I think, another extra step or two every time that happens. Do you want to qualify that or add to anything?
So it's more, it's not necessarily looking at specific light bulbs and specific, it's more the building assets as a whole. So it's looking at HVAC units, it's looking at rooftop units, univentilators, it's looking at the condition of the doors, the carpets, some of those big ticket items that require large amounts of capital to replace and update and repair. And that's where the database comes in handy because it forecasts out, take this room for instance, what would it cost to replace a carpet in this room? Well, it's going to forecast out that the carpet has a 7-year useful life. If after 7 years, the powers that be say, hey, this carpet's in really good shape, we can push that out. You can use that tool, you can push it out, and the cost for that will be adjusted based on a built-in inflation factor. So it's a good long-term planning tool that the town now has available on the buildings as the buildings, for building systems and windows and things like that. So it's not necessarily designed to be a maintenance program, but more a capital planning tool that PMBC, Selectmen, Finance Committee, School Committee can use, look at the data and say, where are we going to have to make big capital investments in the future, right? Right. But it's just building systems. It's not technology. It's not, things like that. It's just building systems and the buildings themselves.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the concern in terms of the time commitment it takes to maintain?
Well, there's a lot of data pieces. I mean, they listed every rooftop unit, every HVAC unit, by number, and there's just a concern that for the data to be valid 3 years from now, when you want to forecast out 10 years from now, that data has to be maintained. And those systems, you have to go in and either delete, we just replaced 6 univentilators at Shaker Lane. So we have to go in and delete those old ones and add the new ones, and it's just a time-consuming process to maintain that database. Somebody has to maintain the database for it to be a valid tool when you're forecasting out in 10 years. And so it's a concern. It's a concern for both the town side and the town buildings and the school department. For the town buildings, there's a lot of data points within that have to be monitored and updated and maintained.
And including the data that on a regularly scheduled maintenance of the rooftop units, if they have to replace a belt or a condenser, all that information has to be entered as well. You don't just cut the rec, cut the PO, and
yeah, we're not. We just saw a very high-level overview. We haven't really gotten into the details of exactly what data and data points are in there that need to be maintained, but it's pretty extensive. So.
When is PMBC going to take the Board of Selectmen?
We haven't set a date yet, but when we do, I'll make sure that the school committee gets an invite.
Yeah, because that's a joint meeting to that. It dovetails with the facility manager, the townwide facility manager also.
Correct.
So that conversation will come up in that process. So the concerns are legitimate, there's man-hours required. The town is going down a road towards hiring a facilities manager. We'll see where we are at that.
I want to make a note there. Jeff Fian, Chair of PMBC, and the PMBC as a whole really foresaw that discussion coming up with that joint meeting when we discussed this with all the boards. But there's also concern, do we really, we were talking about if that's really the best use of funds to hire a townwide facilities manager or a town engineer. There's concerns that it could be too much of an expense and not enough. You don't need an engineer 40 hours a week.
Yeah, what's the value added?
Yeah.
Is the concern.
Yeah, that's just it.
So the database is a tool that the town has access to for a year. After a year, the PMBC or the selectmen, somebody would need to make a decision to maintain that database going forward and have access to it with the company doing updates and cost updates and things like that. There's a dollar amount to that on a yearly basis, so that somebody has to build that into the budget for future years. Or they can take, a year from now, they can take that software and have the software and have the data with no further cost, but what happens to the data future years if it's not maintained with what's the current cost updates, and the company will go out and they take the average of construction projects all across this area to come up with an average of what it costs per square foot if you want to build a new school, for instance, or something like that. So if nobody maintains that data in that database, then what good is a forecasting tool for trying to forecast out 8 years? So there's a lot to debate about it.
And this will all come up in that joint meeting, but just to give you all a heads up on that.
Super. Guys have anything else on that? Okay, budget subcommittee?
Briefly, we had a meeting with the Finance Committee. I went as the school committee representative and the school department representative, all the other departments there, fire, police, and all the other town hall departments, just to sort of set the framework for dates and expectations about how the budget process is going to go. They made a few changes last year in the methodology and the procedures. They're going to adhere to that pretty closely. Not a lot of changes, some fine tuning to it. They will do the one-day workshop again on a Saturday. That sort of kicks off that whole process. And they're firming up dates, so I'm not going to get into dates, but that will occur. The one other thing that they talked about that's of interest and I think is valuable is that they specifically asked that if we are going to do projects that might cross departments, so if the school department is going to ask the highway department to do something, or if there's something with park and rec, use of fields or something like that, and I don't mean day-to-day use, I mean like, if we're going to upgrade something or replace equipment or something like that, they would like to have a list of those types of projects during the budgeting process so that they can determine, well, if the highway department's going to be required, when, what's the cost, what kind of resources are going to have to devote, so that they can make a determination about, yes, we can, no, we can't, this year wouldn't be a good year, can we try to put that one off to next year, that sort of thing. Kind of along the lines of capital planning, but more in terms of use of resources across the town. So that's just something we want to keep in mind if we have projects, sidewalks and, risers and things like that we might be asking other departments to help us out with. They would want a list of that during the budgeting process so that they can plan and allocate accordingly. And that was really it for that particular meeting. And then, like I say, they're firming up their calendar. We'll start to talk about with the admin team what our calendar is going to be like in terms of budget subcommittee meetings and getting data and information together to start fleshing out a budget for the next fiscal year.
And the town usually, early within the budget cycle, they usually ask us for a list of proposed capital projects for next year as well. So we'll be working as an admin council to come to school committee with that list, and then school committee can decide what their comfort level is as far as the request of the town.
Policy?
No, nothing. We're getting
Safety,
ready
security.
to kick off.
Oh, before you adjourn, I missed my cue for interested citizens. I just wanted to get up for CPAC. Just
Bus left, you missed it. Come on up.
so it is on.
Go ahead, let's just break down.
Was he done?
No, Lisa, come on up.
Yeah.
Finish your thought, well, if you want to.
What's that?
I realized I was just cut off.
Sorry. Lisa Boone. I just wanted to let you know, the CPAC, the Special Education Parents Advisory Council, has started up again for the year. I'm one of the co-chairs. Jen Mayo is the other co-chair. And we had our first meeting Tuesday night. Thank you, Daryl, for attending. And so we just wanted to announce that we've managed to get some updates. We have our meeting schedule set and planned. All our meetings are the second Tuesday of the month at 7:30 at the Littleton High School Seminar Room. They're all in the community calendar. They don't make it into the school calendar. One of the things that we would really love to see added, because parents really seem to not look at that community calendar the same way they look at the school calendar. But needless to say, one of our members stepped up and created a Facebook page, which is for informational purposes only. We will have all the meetings listed. If there's a change for any reason last minute, it will be there. We also have an update on the school website with our meeting schedule, with our officers listed, our school representatives, representatives listed as well, with contact information. So for any parents who have any questions, we can help direct them. We can maybe support them in whatever way they need, if their child's on a 504, an IEP, or even if they're just concerned, that we're here to help, and just wanted to announce that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
One thing, you have some exciting educational opportunities coming up with the Girl Scout activity that you're working
You're
with.
right,
them. Why
thank
don't
you,
mention
Daryl.
that?
I neglected to say that. We actually had been approached by one of the local Girl Scout troops, some of the girls who are looking to earn a silver medal, and they helped to initiate, they actually have scheduled a film showing. They decided that they're going to do their project on helping to educate the community a little bit about disabilities, which we think is fantastic, and so we're fully supporting them and helping them with this. They've scheduled for October 4th at 7 o'clock in the multipurpose room, a film showing. We believe the plan is it's going to be the Temple Grandin film. Everybody's invited. It is free. It's for, like I said, educational purposes. We're hoping to have scheduled a speaker who can then lead a discussion about autism at the end of the film. And then they have 2 other film opportunities that we're going to be creating as the year moves on. Hopefully, we're starting to schedule one at the beginning of November, which one of the films is on dyslexia, and then we also have another film. It's called, I can't remember the full name, but FAT City, F-A-T is the acronym. It's Rick Lavoie. It's about learning disabilities, just general learning disabilities. It's a really great film. It's older, but it's still very valid and applicable today, which we'll also show. And again, at the end of each of those films, or they're going to actually be doing the showing, we're supporting them. There will be a speaker who will lead discussions, one about dyslexia and then one about learning disabilities.
Thank you.
So we have some great things coming up over the year, and we will definitely keep parents informed, hopefully as best as we can, with announcements and flyers. But thank you, Daryl. So we do have the first one scheduled for October 4th.
Good, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Why don't you work with
Any
the
questions?
schools then, as far as calendars and like it?
Yeah, I was going to wait till they got back.
All right, safety and security.
The one outstanding item we have on the safety piece is during the summer session, we received a presentation on the ALICE program. During that, we decided that what we'd like to do is hold a public presentation on that and a discussion prior to one of our school committee meetings. Just looking roughly at the calendar, I'm going to propose trying to schedule that for October 10th at 6 o'clock. And I just need to close the loop and make sure that our presenters and stuff would be available on that there. And the purpose would be is to have a public presentation of background information on the ALICE program, and then just the general questions and answers and discussion with the community to address any questions they may have about what that program is.
So we're okay with either the 10th or the 26th of October, based on what Darrell can schedule, and we'll start at 6 p.m.?
Would that be a public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
A public presentation, yeah, I don't know, okay.
Okay.
We'll call it a hearing.
Yeah.
as such.
Yeah.
So 10 or 26, we all okay?
Yep.
I'll work the scheduling on that.
And then just get it to...
10
Matt.
to 24th.
Did I say?
26 is a Saturday.
Thank you.
I won't do it on Saturday.
Math is a tough one, public math. Okay, 10 or 24, thank you.
Yep.
Good kids. All right, anything else, folks? Okay, we'll take a motion.
Make a motion that we adjourn from open session into executive session with no intention to return to open session for the purposes of contract negotiation, strategy discussion.
Okay, and I'm just going to interject before we take that vote, because then we'd be adjourned. Mike and I are not here on 26 September. That's September 26th, we're not here. Is there a definite commitment to 3U Jets, at least as you know right now, can make it?
Yes.
Otherwise, we'd have to postpone them out of the country.
Right now on
Chuck, it's curriculum, not a Russell Street.
what? Right now, Mike,
Just to go.
it's,
So, just to let you know.
He's had so many kids go through Russell Street, he could give that presentation.
Scheduled coming back from South Carolina that day. So my plane doesn't get delayed. I'm in charge, though?
You are?
I'll be there.
Then you're there. Okay. All right, motion made and seconded. Alex?
Aye.
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Can I keep you three just for a minute, please?